I have told on the objection of Malthus, basically, who told if free trade is allowed, well, certain goods might not be anymore produced in uh, certain countries, rather, they might be imported. And even though that might be initially advantageous, I mean, the countries which import those goods to the country, uh, uh, to country we are talking about, might not, for one reason or the other, able to import those goods anymore. It might be a bad harvest. There might be some problems with import, transportation. There might be war, things like that. And especially if those goods critical, food, for example, then inability to have those goods available in your country might have some real consequences. Starvation, for example. Um, so because free trade causes this type of dependency, at least the country should make sure it produces a certain amount of those critical goods within itself, according to Malthus. And to do that, the producers of those critical goods, food especially, that's the primary critical good he was talking about, should be protected. Um, Well, this idea is later expressed. I mean, that was the early objection, but the main idea was basically developed by Smith and Ricardo, and that idea became more dominant in the world. And later, the idea was also expressed by Heckscher-Ohlin model in a different way. You can see the production possibility boundaries of two countries here. And basically, the country produces at the point where, well, basically, Heckscher-Ohlin looks to the, in addition to the to what Ricardo looked, which is basically he just looked to the basic productivity the country has when it uses all of its resources to produce this good or that good. Heckscher-Ohlin also looked to the resources. So if you think G1 and G2 as resources, well, the country 1 is advantageous when it is using, it is produce relatively more goods uh, that require the resources. I'm sorry, the country A. It is more advantageous when it is uses the goods that use relatively more of the resource 1. And country 2 is advantageous in production of goods that use relatively more resource 2. So the cheapest resource will determine, I mean, whatever resource is more cheaper, will determine basically which country will produce what good, basically. Of course, here we are assuming all of them are able to, I mean, production of any good ultimately is done with the same technical method according to this. And the production costs don't change when, at least in the base model, when amount to production units increase or decrease. So in that case, both countries might basically produce goods and services. Goods, especially, let's say services are not tradable. Which uses the relatively more inputs that are cheaper in that country. So they are at PA and PB, and they can just trade their goods. And if they basically produce, if they just sell half of what they produce to each other, then they will end up at CA and CB, and they will be actually at a better position compared with the existing production possibility frontier. So, basically, I mean, this is a relatively more systematic way using a mathematical model to explain Friedman's idea. Although I think Friedman explains it very well. I mean, even maybe better than to some extent these models. Here are some counter ideas besides the earliest idea of Malthus. Even the industry view. And this idea is later developed further, although there are also past versions of it. The idea is this: if a country, I mean, the countries are not running like this. I mean, the productivity a country has in producing certain type of good or service is not set by, well, the talent of people in that country, just or biological characteristics of those people, or natural resources in that country, or geography of that country. All of these factors are effective in setting the productivity, but productivity is also depending on the existing economic infrastructure in that country. So if a country is not developed, in that case, its ability to produce many different goods productively will be limited. And in that case, that country will only be able to produce, as we might have said before, the agricultural products plus the mines, maybe, and the critical products, industrial products especially, won't be produced in that country. And the agricultural products and mining products, they have volatile. I mean, usually their prices fluctuate a lot, and especially if country, whatever agricultural product or mine the country is imports, depends on the geography of that country. In that case, it's very much possible that country produces sells exclusively a single product, and in that case, the country might be in a heavy disadvantage when the price of that single product goes down. I mean, the country might basically not be able to pay its inputs, and it may run into a debt and economic crisis, which happens to the oil producing countries nowadays, basically. So, in order to have a more developed economy, countries need to develop their industries according to this view. But in order to develop the industry, first the production level of the industry should rise above a certain level. Before that, because the production level is small, productivity will be low. I mean, productivity will develop only when more of that good is produced and basically large-scale production is done, so you can save costs. But in order to be able to develop as a large-scale industry, that industry needs first to be protected, according to this view. And a similar view actually is expressed by kind of, even we might say the same view, but in a more organized way, is expressed by Ha-Joon Chang with his very famous article, Kicking Away the Letter. And what he basically writes here is basically this. He says UK and USA, when they actually were developing their industries, becoming the economically more developed countries of the world, they were relying much on the protectionism. England very famously was actually following mercantilist policies in UK, selling just its own products to the colonies, and basically protecting its industries and the markets of the that are available for the industrialized sector of the country. And USA also very famously keep the tariff rates in the country high to protect its industrialized sector. And actually, the farmers in the south didn't want that because they were buying machinery from Europe to basically produce cotton more efficiently. They didn't want cheaper, more expensive machinery from the north. So tariff rates up to the Civil War remained relatively low. During the Civil War, southern countries were not anymore in U.S. Congress and be able to object the high tariff rates. USA has increased the tariff rates, and for a pretty long time those tariff rates remain relatively high. So as Xinjiang says, actually, you need those protections up to the point when you become developed, and USA was very much and UK was very much kept as protections to this point. But after they actually become developed countries, have these industries that are competitive, they now advise to developing countries that they should open their boundaries and they should have free trade, basically. So in a way, they kick the letter so that those countries cannot move up. So those are the views, and you can view the tariff rates basically. This is Civil War, and after Civil War, you see that the rate has jumped and more or less stay up to turn of 20th century, and then it has decreased, and then it has gone up again. But after 1950s, when US become the dominant economic power, it has gone to very low values. So these are the tariff rates in general. US 1.6, China is 3.4, and you have countries with higher tariff rates like Brazil and India. Although this should be checked also today with new after the US trade war with China. Probably both of these numbers have changed, but I leave that to you. So China has some other protections, especially in the financial sector. It has protections, and in terms of tariff rates also, it has some. There's still a higher protection compared with the United States, but not at the rates that US has in the 20th century. Of course, China has another advantage, which is capital mobility, which is happening in drastic scales in today's world. Well, the way we have expressed actually were the protectionist views, as we have told in the previous sections, were actually effective in formation of the ISI policies. I mean, import substitution industrialization, which is actually the state should put tariffs strategically to protect industries one by one. And once industries get developed, and removing those protections. And Washington Consensus, basically, ISI had kind of been half successful in most developing countries, and Washington Consensus has criticized it, and it says actually without competition, actually the companies become dependent on the protection. So basically, the cure is moving all the protections, and at least let sectors that are productive enough, it might be agricultural or mining sectors, to be as productive as possible. So I will talk more on this in the next part. See you in the next part.